All right, come on in, everybody. Grab a coffee. Top up your snacks if you need it. We're going to do a door prize just to get your butts in the seats, so here we go. First door prize of the day, going to EnergyPlex Day Pass, goes to...
Okay, our first lucky winner is 25283422. I'll say it one more time. 25283422.
Oh, who's our big winner? Big winner. Yay! Thank you. All right. Well, welcome to our Intentional Parenting Summit. We're so glad you came. A couple of just housekeeping things, and then we'll get right into it with our special guests. My name is Melissa Feddersen. I'm a mom of 2 teenagers, and I have worked with youth and young adults in Kelowna for many, many years in a whole bunch of different ways. And so when we were talking about things we want to do at Metro, we are really committed to trying to contribute to the things we want to see in the city of Kelowna. We want to see more art and murals and music and community, and we want to see flourishing communities. And a big part of that, and something that we have a lot of value on, is on families. Working with youth for so many years, just came to really believe in the power of parents and the power of family. We want to be part of strengthening families in Kelowna. And so I'm your MC today, along with my friend.
What's my name? I have 2 kids as well, but kind of at the other different stage in the parenting journey. I have a 5 and a 3-year-old. And when we were meeting together to try to figure out what it is we wanted to do here as Metro to sort of serve the community, be a part of the community. I don't know about you guys. I'm assuming because you're here as well. I'm getting help I can get when it comes to parenting my kids. And so when we were talking together, we were trying to find speakers and a place where we could all meet to learn more about what it is to raise our children. How can we do this well? How can we connect with our kids in this sort of ever-changing world and landscape that we live in?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, and I think that the 3 topics that we talked about, the stage I'm at and the stage Emily are at, what were some things that we both wanted to be attentive to? What were some things that across, no matter what sort of age that we're parenting in, what were some of the topics? And one of the things that I've seen in my work was parents that stay just tuned in and keyed in to their kids, parents who can overcome conflict and know how to deal with conflict in a way that holds relationships central and helps us to, because we're all going to have to face a lot of complicated things, challenging things. So we know we want to be able to deal with those things with our kids in tight relationship, and we want to know how to deal with conflict in a healthy way. And the other thing that we both talked about was screens.
Screens. We know all the help we can get with screens.
And so my teenagers, her small kids, wanting to just make sure that we're doing the best we can to support our kids. So those are the 3 topics that we felt that we wanted to really press into today, was sort of around attachment and tuning into our kids, dealing with conflict in our families, and dealing with some of the digital parenting stuff.
So thanks for joining us on Melissa's and my private parenting conference here. Yeah. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you all want to learn about the same things that we want to learn about today.
Yeah. When you checked in, you gave your cell phone numbers. Keep your phones out, because we want our childcare people to be able to get a hold of you if they need you. So, don't go on Facebook or get distracted by your own digital relationship, but do keep your phone out so that our childcare people can get a hold of you in case your kids need you. Bathrooms right back here in this room here, and then a couple more at the front. Change tables in this one and one of the individual ones as well. And then, we really want it casual today. I hope that you meet 3 new people that you think their parenting looks cool, or that they have the same values as you around parenting. We hope that you enjoy some good snacks, some healthy food, and that you learn 2 new things. maybe?
Even one.
One new thing, and just have 2 hours, 3 hours away from your kids. That's all right too. Yeah.
So it was important to us that before we begin this morning of learning and connection with each other, that we acknowledge the Syilx people in whose unceded territory we live and are meeting on today. We want to honor their connection to the land, respect their traditions, and we're grateful for their careful and continued stewardship. We recognize this as part of the ongoing process of truth and reconciliation, a process that we as parents are responsible for ensuring our families are active participants in. I'd also like to take a moment to recognize the privilege that we have to be able to meet and gather together to talk about parenting in this kind of setting. And a moment to acknowledge the tension that exists within me, or that creates for me, as many Indigenous people have had their right to parent taken away due to the ongoing impact of residential schools and colonization. So it's truly a privilege to be here with you guys today. Thank you for taking the time to learn with us and grow with us as parents together.
Right, so we are going to hop right into it. So when we started talking about parenting, we talked about some of the people that we admire. Joel and I have worked with kids in the community for a long time, and we really love Mr. Fung's children. We think we've enjoyed watching Tanya and David parent their kids, and we thought there's lots we can learn from them. David is also a Kelowna-based individual, couple, and family psychotherapist, life coach, educator, and consultant. He has previously served on the faculty of the Neufeld Institute, which great parenting resource, Hold On to Your Kids, that he wrote with Mate, is a beautiful book. Gordon Neufeld has done lots of cool stuff, and which David has integrated into his work for the past 21 years, both personally and professionally. He also leads a very cool learning circle of family therapists in town, which I've always admired. And so when we thought about who we wanted to hear from about parenting and about attachment to kids, we thought of David immediately. So we're so thankful that he agreed to be our keynote speaker today. So with that, I think we can hop right in.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you for the warm invitation to be here this morning. I certainly appreciated the land acknowledgement, the invitation that we all have to be here to gather in this place, but I also really do appreciate the invitation to come and speak with you all this morning. Joel, wherever you are, you told me this was going to be like 20 people. Come on. This is my first in-person presentation actually to a group like this in some time. I haven't presented in front of a group since prior to COVID, so I don't take it lightly to be invited to come and speak to you all. Hopefully you'll have some grace with me this morning to see if I'm still in practice, if I make any mistakes, or if I get ahead of myself a time or two, or if the tech doesn't work, you guys will show some grace with me. I was actually in a conversation a little earlier this morning with a lady, and she said, "You're presenting to us this morning?" I said, "Yep." She said, you look a little nervous." And I said, "Well, not really. I'm pretty good at this. It's been a while, but I'm sort of my thing. I talk to people for a living. I have done this sort of thing in the past." She goes, "Really? Well, I'm sorry. You seemed a little nervous." And I said, "No, really, lady. Like, I'm fine. I'm good. This is sort of my thing. Like, really, I present to people." She said, Okay. I said, "Well, just wondering why you're here in the ladies." Okay, so that really did not happen. That's just a joke. But I did have a conversation with somebody this morning about perhaps feeling a little nervous after not doing this for some time, and she probably thought I was talking about her. So, anyways, Melissa mentioned Gordon Neufeld. In my professional life, I've been really fortunate to have had the opportunity to sit at the feet of some really remarkable trainers and teachers And at the top of that list is Gordon Neufeld. Now, some of you here may be familiar with his work, know of the Neufeld Institute that's been around now for coming on 15 years. And at that time, when the Institute was starting, I was so fortunate that Gordon brought a few of the people who were really committed to an attachment and a developmental model to serve on the faculty of his institute. And so I was one of the first people that were part of that. And I have built such remarkable relationships with the folks that are yet still part of the Institute and are still part of the faculty. And I may yet be referencing a number of them throughout the presentation this morning, as well as Gordon himself. It's really been his life's work and his scholarship that will really form the basis of anything that I'll have to say here to you this morning. He's really given his life to trying to figure out how we can best serve the needs of our kids, trying to sort of put the pieces together when it comes to relationships and attachment and how this works. And as Gordon is fond of saying, we really sort of hold to the notion that attachment is sort of a fundamental it's sort of like a fundamental piece of understanding the universe that we're in. We believe it's a master principle of the universe, sort of akin to gravity. You know, you can't really break gravity, you can only prove it. And we sort of see attachment in the same vein. Now, let me just get a sense of the room this morning. I'd like to get a sense of who's here. Who's here in the room? Now, I see a number of you that have babies in arms, little infants. Just how many of you are dealing with infants, or let's say kids from newborn, 0 to 1? Okay, great. Awesome. How many of you have toddlers? Okay. That's the group that's mostly going to be represented here this morning. How many of you are dealing with kids that we might think of sort of as middle childhood, pardon me? Yeah, okay, sort of 6 to 8. Pre-adolescence? Okay, all right. And then adolescence? Okay. All right, and a few of you have multiples, right? You've got kids in all of those ranges. How many of you are parenting your spouse? A few of those in the room. All right. How many grandparents in the room? All right, yeah. Rocket, love it. Good, glad that we got the grandparents here. So like Melissa said, I'm going to try to keep this a little bit more informal this morning. I'm going to have some time. They've asked me to keep some time at the end of the presentation just for some question and answer. So we'll have that. But I'd like to sort of get your responses this morning as well. So we'll have a little bit of an interactive time here to begin. And I've got a question for you to start. Let's see if we can get the PowerPoint going. And very few of us actually take the time to really reflect on and think through what it is that we even hope for as parents. When you sort of get into it and you're sort of going from day to day, things are coming at you pretty quickly. And when you're just sort of in that constant motion, it might not be the luxury really to really sit and reflect on, well, what is it that we're up to here anyway, and what is it that I'm really hopeful for? Maybe part of the benefit of a morning like this is that it carves out some time for you to be intentional about reflecting on that very question. What is it that I hope for? A wise person once said that we should always begin with the end in mind, right? So this morning, why don't we start that way? Why don't we just take a few minutes just to think through what are some of the outcomes that we're interested in when it comes to our parenting? What is it that you hope for? So just take a couple seconds with that, and then I'm just going to get you to speak at me, to talk back to me. Tell me what it is some ideas you have about what you'd hope for from your parenting. And Melissa's going to just put some of these responses in a word or two up on the board for us. When it comes to your parenting, when it comes to what it is you'd hope for, what do you have in mind? What do you want for your kids? What do you want for yourself with your kids? All right, your turn. Tell me, what would you like? What do you like to see? Healthy communication. Excellent. I heard something over here. Yes?
Emotionally intelligent, well-rounded children.
Emotionally intelligent, well-rounded children.
That's hard spelling.
Intel.
Thank you. Yeah, good.
EQ. All right, same thing, yeah. Anything else? What else are you hoping for? Hoping for a relationship. Now, you'll notice that as these come up here, we're not necessarily defining the terms, right? What do we mean by a relationship? What do we mean by emotional intelligence? These are good things, but maybe we'll have a chance to take a look at what some of these things mean. What else are we hoping for? Yes? Mindfulness. Good. Yes?
Like my kids would feel safe
Safe to
to come to me with absolutely anything.
come to you with absolutely anything.
My love would never change.
Right. So a couple of ideas there, that your kids would be able to come to you with absolutely anything and trust that no matter what, your love's not going to change for them. Did I get that right? Yeah, good. Anybody else? Other outcomes? Yes? That they'll be successful in life. Very good. Yes. Happy. You want your kids to end up being happy. Speak up, I want to hear that one. That they can themselves create healthy relationships for themselves. That's great, very good. Yes, any others? One more time? Confident children. You want children to have confidence. That's a word that's going to come up in the presentation yet this morning. Confidence in your kids. What's that? You want your kids to follow Jesus. Right. Who said that? Yeah, you want your kids to follow Jesus. Maybe we can even expand that idea a little to saying that maybe one of the things we would hope for is that we would be able to imbue our kids with a set of values. Values that mean something to us. Yeah? Okay, good, thank you. Any other ideas? What would you hope? Resilient kids. It's a big focus these days. How do we create resilience in our kids, right? It's a big buzzword. Lots of academic study on that. Yes?
That they would learn to be good neighbors, that they'd see their...
Good social citizens, yeah? Being a good neighbor, yeah. And that can mean any number of things as well, right? But thank you for that, that you'd want your kids to be good neighbors, productive citizens, contributors. Yes? Honesty. Want your kids to be honest. Yes. You want them to know that they are valued. You want them to have a sense of their own worth, their own dignity. Yes. Very good. These are great responses. Excellent. Anybody else? That they have a purpose and that they matter. Very good. Getting a great list up there. Anybody else? Any other responses? Yes. Independence. Did I get that right? Independent kids. Okay. Now, independence is a little tricky word, right? And I'll tell you why a little bit later. But I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what you might mean when you say independence is that you're hoping for kids that are able to function as viable separate beings in their world. Am I getting that right? Okay. So by that definition, independence. Anybody else?
Authentic.
Auth-
Be authentic.
For them to be authentic. Yeah, and maybe that...
Themselves, yeah.
Okay, and maybe that ties in with the notion of honesty as well, right? For them to live from a sense of truth, from a place of truth and authenticity, really being themselves authentically. Good. Anybody else?
Being courageous.
Being courageous, yes. I have a whole thing that just came up for me when you said that, courageous kids. We can spend another hour just on that. Great response. Anybody else? Very good. Yes? Empathetic kids. Yes. Good. Good. Kids that know how to trust themselves. Right. Good. Fantastic. Anybody else? So take a look at this list now. Look at what we've got up there. You've heard the responses, you've heard what your peers have called out this morning. We want kids that are going to be honest and happy, that they'll have a sense of purpose, know that they matter. Kids that are courageous. Kids that know their own value and their worth. Kids that are feeling safe, a sense of safety to come to us, no matter what it is that they're experiencing. That they'll trust themselves. They'll be good social citizens, good neighbors. That they'll know how to communicate well, they'll be empathic. Kids that follow Jesus will pass along our values to them. Kids that are independent. Kids that are emotionally intelligent, well-rounded kids. Kids that they themselves will be able to create healthy relationships, resilient kids, confident kids, right? Amazing responses. So one of the challenges in doing a presentation like this, at the Neufeld Institute, over the years we've developed probably north of now 24, 25 separate courses on parenting. And there's a lot of material and a lot to be said about things. So in a 1 hour talk, how do you distill that to the essence, right? And so how I've organized my thinking this morning is really to try to leave you with the most important things I could say in a short period of time. Recognizing that I'm going to have a lot of frustration, that I'm not going to be able to go deep into each of these things, but just to be able to say, what the most important things are. And so I've organized my thinking this morning into one big proposition, and then two questions that if we ask these questions, it has the potential to transform our relationships. And then flowing out of those two questions, three key insights on what really matters most. So that's kind of where we're going with each other today. We'll see how I do. Okay, so one big proposition. Oh. First glitch already. Here we go. Okay, here we go. So I'm having some tech difficulties with the PowerPoint. Don't know if somebody can help me with that. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. So here's the big proposition. That all these things that we just put up here on the whiteboard, that there's only one authentic, organic, non-contrived way to make these things a reality. And the big proposition is simply that the most effective, powerful, creative, and life-giving resource at your disposal in your parenting is the power of your relationship and the connection you cultivate with your children. That's it. That's the big proposition. And again, in really, really simple terms, the only organic, non-contrived power that you have to accomplish any of these outcomes that you just identified, that you just articulated and we've just written on the board, the only power that you really have to accomplish that is the power that comes from having a healthy bond with your kids. Now, in scientific terms, in this realm of science, what we call this bond is an attachment. It's an attachment bond. And the science of studying relationships, studying connection is called attachment science. And if you ask evolutionary biologists, they're going to tell you that at our essence, we are bonding mammals. Okay? And if you ask a neuroscientist these days, what they're going to tell you is that we are hardwired for connection. And so even in the hard data science these days, it's affirming this reality. Now, for those of us that come from a Christian faith perspective, this is not a surprise to us, shouldn't be a surprise to us, right? Because in the Christian tradition, one of God's first revelations of himself to us is as a relational entity whose image we are created in. In the Christian tradition, God exists as the Holy Trinity. His very existence is in relationship. The essential state of the Godhead is relationship. And we are created in that image, right? And so, think about it. If God's essential state is relationship, and then we are in that image, what does that tell us about who we are at our essence, at our deepest essence? The thing that makes up the essence of humanity is that we are profoundly relational beings. And all of the data coming in now from many disciplines in the scientific world is really just affirming that reality. But again, not something that perhaps should be that much of a surprise to us. Now, what this means for our kids is that recent research has shown unequivocally again that having at least one committed and close relationship with important adults is the number one predictor of, I heard it in the back of the room earlier, resilience in children and adolescents. And you heard me say just a moment ago that this has been a huge area of exploration in the sciences and the developmental sciences over the last decade. The buzzword, how do we create resilient kids? Well, we know that the number one predictor of resilience in kids is that they have at least one meaningful attachment into the adult world. It's a big deal. Now, it's not hard to understand that if you have this connection, if you have that relationship, that it becomes a source of safety, of support, of responsiveness, of protection, many of the things that we talked about on this board. And that relationship actually serves as a protective shield for the child. Now, I gotta say that everything I've said so far, I kinda know that I'm already preaching to the choir here, right? You don't take good time on a Saturday weekend morning to come to a conference called the Intentional Parenting Summit, right? To listen to a presentation called Attachment and Connection, unless you already have some inclination that this is something that really matters. So I know you're already believing that, and that this is something that's very important. But if you're like me, perhaps you've noticed something. Perhaps you've noticed that in our culture, many of us seem to have lost the confidence to parent. We don't have a lot of confident parents anymore. If you're like me, it's easy to struggle with being confident as a parent. And I think it might have to do with an observation that I have that there seems to be a lot of judgment heaped on parents these days. Have you noticed that? You ever been in a grocery store and your child's acting up and all of a sudden it feels like all eyes are trained on you, right? Or you're in an airplane and your child starts to cry and you feel like you want to crawl into a hole because you feel the judgment from everybody else. Or you're in church. That never happens in church, right? No. Everyone seems compelled to dole out uninvited opinions whenever children are involved, from friends to family members to total strangers. And I know that, like, I'm a 54-year-old man. Let me see the hands of those that are older than 54. We're going to do something together here. Okay, for those of you that are older than me, my age or older, let me just ask, when you were growing up, did your mom and dad, did you ever see them reading a book on parenting? Laughter, right? Did you ever see them go on a Saturday morning to a parenting conference where they'd get information about parenting? No? Yeah, didn't happen, right? So what's happened? Our parents, who had a lot less technology, who were perhaps, didn't have the same kind of access that we have today, they had way more confidence in their parenting that we have today. So the question is, why is there such a lack of confidence in terms of what we've been doing for eons? What could have possibly happened? Technology? Right, this is a new problem. The point is that our parenting confidence is already quite tender these days. Thanks to pervasive societal judgment, and the media can participate in that, setting up unrealistic expectations for our parenting. And it leaves us searching for answers from the outside, never fully trusting ourselves and knowing what's in our children's best interests. We've bought into the notion that our approach to parenting must fit in, or that our children should act in socially appropriate ways all the time, right out of the baby Bjorn carrier, right? Our lack of confidence has created a huge market for wannabe gurus that have stepped in to get a piece of the parenting action, right? To fill this incredible void, this knowledge vacuum. In the absence of parental confidence and the knowledge vacuum that we have, many of our parents are reaching out to everyone everywhere. Parenting by Google has become a mainstay. Parenting by blog has become a mainstay. There are parents that read book after book after book, but something is still amiss. Something is still unsatiated. There's still a prevailing sense of unease. Maybe the next book, the next seminar, the next talk, maybe David Fung will have the answer. A strange blindness seems to have descended on us. And paradoxically, again, it seems to me that the information explosion has not been helpful with this at all. With all the details, with all of the technical data, somehow we've become blinded to the meanings. It's a case of losing the forest for the trees. Now, it turns out that there's a legitimate reason for the loss of our confidence. We are asking the wrong questions, and we are preoccupied with the question of what should I do? What's the answer? The technique, the strategy, the program? Our parents never asked this. Our grandparents never asked this. I don't remember once in my life where my dad said, "You know what, Davey, I am just so puzzled by you." Just never happened. He never said those words, right? Our parents just were not preoccupied with the things that we've become preoccupied with. And again, that was without the technical knowledge or the material conditions to do a great job of parenting. But here's what they had that we don't have. We've really got to get this. Our parents and our grandparents were still embedded in a culture that provided them the cues, the insights, the implicit knowing that served as a vehicle for raising children in that day. Today, we have a huge craving for insight, even as much as we have so much more information at our fingertips. But the fast pace of living and the demands for even bigger and bigger productivity have depleted our social support systems, systems which they themselves have become fragmented and divided and replaced with other systems that are rarely designed to support the work that we have as parents, and they're actually designed to take us out of connection. So what do we mean when we talk about the job of parenting being embedded in a culture that served as a vehicle for raising children? Now, when culture is intact, it provides us the cues, the rituals, the symbols, the customs, the conventions, the social mores, okay? So let's take a look at a very simple example of what we're talking about. This is just one example, okay? I don't know, do you guys remember something called the sit-down family meal? Oh, some of you might remember that? Yeah, so these days, the thing that we call the sit-down family meal, you know what they used to call it before? Breakfast, lunch, dinner. The simple act of taking time to sit and eat a meal together, the simple sit-down meal, which was part of every culture universally, around food. Now why? That's when you get together. Now, how could that make a difference? How is that important? Well, that's where you connect. That was where the family connected. That was where all of the important discussions of the day happened. That was where you were trying not to make something work. You weren't trying. You were just sitting together, simply being together, sharing a meal. Now, of course, new research comes in, very recent, and says the single most important factor in the mental health of a child, or even an adolescent, is the number of sit-down meals correlated that they have had the previous week. I'll repeat that. New research has come in that says the single most important factor in the mental health of a child or even an adolescent is the number of sit-down meals correlated that they have had the previous week. Just let that sit on you for a minute. It's gone the way of the dodo bird, right? We don't do it anymore. So it's come back to affirm that culture was right. But perhaps at the time that we were doing it, we didn't even know the function it served. Now, obviously, it's not just the simple act of sitting down and having the meal that was the magic, but rather what was embedded in the act of sitting down that carried the power. Well, what our parents and grandparents had that allowed them to be confident was intuition. Now, the word intuition means wisdom, knowledge without words. To intuit. Knowledge without words. And this was implicit, or what we might call today unconscious. And what I'm going to suggest to you today is that the loss of culture that we've experienced in the last couple of generations, that loss of culture has created an incredible knowledge vacuum. And so today, we are basically in reaction to that reality. There's a legitimate reason why we feel like we're scrambling, why we've lost our confidence. Well, that culture was embedded in wisdom, the rights, the roles. When you had a role, you knew what to do. The scripts were already there. When you were a dad, you knew what it meant to be a dad. You had a role. As a mother, you knew what the role as a mother, as a boy in the family, as a girl in the family, as a brother, as a sister. The roles were somewhat scripted. It was part of the DNA of the family. It was part of the culture, and it was passed down. And that was the power of culture. In the age of materialism, the dollar has become more important, and we've lost the culture. Now, I'm not suggesting that culture was always good. I'm not saying that it always provided for our children what they needed. We're just using this as an example. But the point is that our forebears had the luxury where they didn't have to ask the questions or scramble for knowledge in the way that we are today. And the extent that the culture was healthy for relationships really depended upon whether the culture that was there, if it had evolved in synchrony with the children, with what the children needed and how nature works. To the extent that the culture was healthy, it depended on whether it had evolved in synchrony with what the children needed and how nature works. Cultures that were fairly heady, that came from the head a lot, they didn't necessarily serve these needs all that well. Cultures that came more from the heart, rural cultures, some cultures in Southern European cultures, those cultures tended to carry the wisdom of this a whole lot better than urban cultures or cultures that came from the head. But the idea here, the central idea, is that if the culture had evolved in synchrony with what the children truly need and how it truly works, it gave rise to, it resonated with an inner wisdom, an inner intuition. And that tells us the story of where we are now. In the wake of culture and the absence of intuition, now we must have insight. We're scrambling for it. We're desperate for it. Knowledge with words. Intuition, knowledge without words. Insight, knowledge with words. And so we've got to find a way to move back towards our intuition, and insight provides possibly a path back there. So why is insight so important in today's world? Because we've got to find a way back to our intuition. We've lost the traditional source for our cues and what to do and how to act as parents. And so I said I was going to present you with two questions that have the potential then to transform our parenting. And these questions are, what do I see? And that's a question that we're asking instead of, what do I do? Not that we would always have the answers to these questions, but these should be the questions that we are seeking to find answers to. What do I see instead of what should I do? And then secondly, what does this child need from me to enable nature to do its good work? Now, these questions, if we ask them, they should set us on the path towards trying to see. And mostly what they ask of us is it asks for us it's begging for insight, these questions, and really coming to understand our children from the inside out. In our ignorance of what children need and how nature works, we're making two big mistakes. We're engaging in a lot of activities that we don't need to be involved in. Our children would actually get there spontaneously. And it leads to an inordinate amount of pushing the river, right? Doing things that we really don't need to do. And secondly, we're failing to set the stage for nature to do the work that nature does. We're failing to play into nature's hands, failing to do our part in the equation. Now, one of the things that Joel showed me when I popped in here last week was this really beautiful artwork that stands just in the entrance around the corner there. And it's a beautiful piece of art that has a very organic motif. It's a tree, and it's a healing metaphor, and I was really moved to take a look at that when I came in here last week. It reminds me actually of some of the images and the metaphors that we use in our work with the Neufeld Institute. It really is a similar kind of metaphor of a plant or a tree that has roots going deep into the soil, the place where the context from where it gathers and gains its nourishment. And then above the soil you have this beautiful springing forth of life. And this is a metaphor for healing, this is a metaphor for growth, this is a metaphor for maturation, for many of the things that we would want to see. But it's an organic, natural metaphor, and we've lost connection with how nature works. So these are urgent questions. These are not urgent questions, but they're very important questions. What do I see? And what does this child need from me to enable nature to do its work? Now, what culture historically did was it protected the urgent, the important from the urgent. So these are important, but they don't necessarily strike us as urgent. And so the insight that we're looking for truly has to do with what children truly need and how nature works. The problem is when we are stripped of culture, we are laid bare to our own instincts, emotions, and needs. Culture protected us from that. Now, one distinction that's useful is between instinct and intuition. Instinct is more of an urge, intuition is more of a hunch. Intuition puts us back in the driver's seat. It puts us back in control. And instinct drives us. Emotions drive us. They push us rather than draw us into. And so they're very different. And heaven help us if our children are left at the mercy of, our emotions, our instincts, our needs. Parenting was not supposed to be about us. We're supposed to be there for them. Giving authority to what we feel like in the moment is the worst kind of tyranny and chaos in parenting. And we find ourselves then using language like this. I need you to do this. You're upsetting me. Oh, I need a break from you. You're making me angry. I don't feel like cooperating with you when you're embarrassing me. All of those statements are coming from us, as if our children were meant to meet our emotional needs, rather than us being there for them. Again, historically, our culture had protected us from our own sort of free-floating emotions and instincts. When we lose our culture, we lose that protection as well. Only insight can bring us back to our senses to help us find the information that is already within us. If we cannot see clearly, we become the victims of something called the fundamental attribution error, which is mistakenly perceiving that what a child does, they do it on purpose. This has become a pandemic with children, an epidemic. We ask them now, why did you do this? Why did you hit your sister? Why did you lie? Why did you do this? Why did you do that? As if they actually even knew, right? It's not like they got up in the morning and said, okay, so today I'm going to make a goal, I'm going to make a plan for really driving my sister crazy, making my mom feel really inadequate. I've got a plan for that today. They don't. Most of what we know about kids is that 90 to 95% of what they don't do on purpose at all. We don't even do this. Most of our behavior doesn't reflect our intentions, and we often don't have intentions when we behave in any particular way. But I can assure you that when it comes to the problem behavior of our kids, most of that was never intended, was not on purpose. And the problem with this attribution error is that when we get on the wrong side of our kids, it becomes an adversarial relationship right from the get-go. We start with a confrontation. And the most important thing, if we really want to give children what they need, is that we have to come alongside of them and be in sync with how nature works. And we can't do this without really coming to know them from the inside out. So when we start off with an adversarial kind of posture, we're immediately off on the wrong track. And again, only insight can get us back on the right track. Now, when wisdom is intact in a culture, there is a sense that All that is needed will unfold in time, in its good time. Nature's work is protected against the urgency of agendas and individuals and systems. And of course, now the knowledge vacuum has changed all that. The new standard that we have today is what works. And we euphemize this these days as evidence-based practice, right, in some circles. It's the new political correctness in parenting and teaching. What works? And what we typically mean by what works is what is it that works for us? What works for parents? What works for teachers? What works for systems? And what gives immediate results? And so we adopt strategies that are short-sighted and self-serving. Now, if we planted a garden and we got immediate results, that would tell us actually that something wasn't working. Something was off, because that's not how nature works. We would automatically suspect that it actually isn't the work of nature, because nature takes its time. Now, lots of things do work. Creating separation, feigning separation to get a child to obey. You better come along or I'm going to leave. That will work. But at what cost? Timeouts will work. But at what cost to the relationship? Sleep training works. But at what cost? Pills work. To manage symptoms, increase performance, but at what cost to our children and to how nature works? The use of consequences works for managing behavior, but at what cost to what children truly need and how nature works? You get the drift, right? It's been said that decapitation works for a headache. Oh, we've got that one figured out? Yeah, good. We engage in these strategies without any consideration of who this is to be working for. Now, when we have clear insight about these things, we're able to see beyond the immediate. We're able to see beyond the behavior in the moment. We can see within the child to make sense of them from the inside out. First of all, insight concerning the roots and the meaning of a child's behavior. To be able to read our anxious children as having feelings of being unsafe. When we can read that, when we have the insight to see that, what we need to do then becomes much more obvious. When we can read the aggressive child as frustrated, and they've got frustration to the point where they haven't yet had their tears about the things that they cannot change. Well, when that happens, when we can read that, then we won't be tempted to increase the frustration in their life. When we can read our oppositional children as feeling coerced, we can find creative ways around that. When we can read the impulsive child as emotionally immature, then we can serve to compensate for that. When we read the bossy, demanding child, we see that what they're really in need of is a strong, alpha, caring individual. What my mentor calls your inner big Italian mama. In my case, it's your inner big black mama, right? So this is all based on the need for insight. The need to be able to see beyond, to see into. A colleague of mine just recently wrote this. She said, "A child will usually know what is expected and is either unable or unwilling to deliver. The inability to deliver is usually a maturity problem. The unwillingness to deliver is usually an attachment problem." I'll read that again. I think it's really great. A child will usually know what is expected and either is unable or unwilling to deliver. The inability to deliver is usually a maturity problem. The unwillingness to deliver is usually an attachment problem. We've become preoccupied with trying to shape everything, shape learning, shape kindness, shape empathy, shape consideration. All this stuff, we're trying to shape it. In pushing at learning, however, what we're doing is we destroy the curiosity, the essential motivation for learning. In trying to shape caring, we destroy its very essence. When a child acts as if they care just to please a teacher or please a parent or to get a reward, the caring becomes corrupted. It's now selfishness or hypocrisy or narcissism. We work at teaching responsibility, but endanger the very sense of agency from which responsibility derives. We put an emphasis on the right form, good form, social behavior, but then we're endangering the very spirit that would give birth to the real thing. Acting more caring or more mature or more empathetic will certainly not make it real. So getting ahead of nature is the gravest developmental sin. It sabotages the ability of nature to do its work. If a child is stuck, then getting them unstuck should be our goal, not trying to get the child to act more mature than they are. And so this becomes one of the most important things in our day-to-day interactions. So, what insights are the most important in today's world? This is all based on 3 deeper insights. And these insights are paramount and foundational, essential for navigating the gap between culture and consciousness. And these are really the insights that I think are the most important thing I can share with you this morning. As parents, we need to start thinking about entering into a partnership with nature. It works best for us with our kids when we know how nature works and so that we can function as a team, not at cross purposes with nature. So the first key insight is that relationship is the context for raising children. Attachment is the preeminent need. It's not what we do, but who we are to our children that counts the most. In my line of work as a therapist, there was a big study about what is it that we do in therapy that works the best with our clients. Is it the right technique? Is it the right strategy? The right modality? The right setting? After lots of analysis, years of study, they came back with the central factor in what makes therapy work. Guess what it is? The relationship of the client to the therapist. In learning theory, in schools, again, lots of study about what makes teaching effective, what allows us to be able to teach well. Guess what the number 1 factor is in teaching? The child's connection to the teacher. Any guesses as to what the most effective thing is in our parenting? The child's relationship to the parent. How is the child connected to the adults involved? This is the number 1 insight that we have to be able to see. Secondly, emotion. Now, the word emotion literally means, from the original language, to motion, move, to move. It was always understood as the fundamental animating force and principle in our lives. Emotion moves us. It's how nature moves us. Emotion is nature's answer. It's not the problem, which is what we've made it. Since the 16th century with John Locke, he had a pronouncement that emotion was the problem and women and children were the problem because they were too emotional. And that's been with us for centuries now. Men, we're rational, logical. Women, children, emotional. And so, yet today, our preoccupation with our children is getting them to quell emotion, regulating it, calming it down. Admonishing our children to get a hold of themselves. We tell them in 1,000 different ways not to feel, when feeling is the answer to becoming human and more humane. John Locke got it wrong. He was absolutely wrong. But somehow this hasn't gotten through to us yet. And what is right about women and children is that they are more emotional. That's what's right about it, not what's wrong about it. Emotion is the answer. It was always nature's answer. It's the first motivational system about how to move us. When we feel our alarm, we're moved to caution. When somebody is telling us what to do and our attachment instincts are not engaged, we are resistant. We oppose them because we shouldn't be influenced by anybody that's not part of our village of attachment. All of these things, when something doesn't work, we get frustrated. And so then we try to change things. All of the emotions have their adaptive rationale. Every emotion has its reason. It may seem irrational, but the brain has its legitimate reasons. Now, we're starting to get more of this consciousness into our culture, but usually when we're talking about it now, it's become the darling science and neuroscience, the darling exploration, but they're still treating emotion as the problem. They're not seeing it as the answer. We're not starting off by saying, oh goodness, sweetheart, I see that you're frustrated, and that frustration really needs to come out. Here, let me help you find a way. That's not what we're saying. We're saying, get a hold of yourself. Calm down. Don't be so stirred up. Emotion does its work in us precisely because it stirs us up. Nature goes to work when we get stirred up. Calmness and equanimity are the things now that we feel that we must get. Self-control is more important. We're not giving the space to our emotions, and we're not teaching our children to give space to their emotions. And so, right away, we're getting off on the wrong track. We've missed that this was nature's answer. Thirdly, play. Wow, play. It's essential for healthy development and emotional well-being. This was one of the oldest realizations of the Greek philosophers, the first realization of the developmental psychologists. And now again, it's coming back in vogue. People are starting to take a look again at play, because we know that play is nature's workshop. Now, this is kind of a new thing. In the last 6 to 8 years, there are 2 huge movements in academia to study this, cross-disciplinary. One is a North American-based movement, the other one's British-based. And what they're discovering is this thing that was right underneath our noses the whole time. The thing that we thought was frivolous, that was throwaway, the thing that we didn't think was count, is now the single most important factor in child development, and we're studying it that way, even in emotional health and well-being and in mental illness. In 2018, that's only 5 years ago, guys, playfulness became the key indicator of emotional health and well-being, and the United Nations Human Rights Council declared play a human right critical to children's physical, emotional, social, and cognitive development. So this is something that right now, most places of higher learning are really focusing again on play as we're coming more and more to understand just how critical this is in development. When we lose our playfulness, we are in trouble. And playfulness is the exact opposite of depression in terms of the brain. Playfulness is the opposite of depression. Children need to play. Adults need to play, and somehow we've become a very work-oriented society, an outcome-based society. So when we talk about play, we're talking about a very specific thing, a play with some very specific qualities. True play is always engaging. It's not always fun, but it's always engaging. And it's not outcome-based. Many people say, are video games play? Well, not really, because video games are really outcome-based. I'm sure you'll hear more about that in the next presentation. If a child is playing a game, any game where the outcome is to win, they're only playing so-and-so a ball game, a football game to win, it's no longer real play, it's work. And so some activities can be both. You can play the piano for the sheer enjoyment of it, or you can play it and it's like work for you. Many activities can be one or the other. But the difference is it outcome-based? Play is not for real. You can be sisters in real life, But in play, you're playing sisters. And then whatever you want to say, whatever you want to do, it's not for real, right? Your parents may confront you. Hey, you guys down there, don't yell, don't scream. It's okay, Mommy, we're just playing. So we know that it's a parenthesis. It's a break from reality, and that's the beauty of it. Play has a beginning and an end. All mammals have play signals, and we found out that these play signals are important. Culture historically kept those signals in place, but now we've started to lose them. And in play, we are free. We are free to play, which then means we are free not to play. And then, as a result, that protects the emerging will. There's no counter will in play, it's free. And it's always safe. Not talking about it always being physically safe, but it's always emotionally safe. You guys will remember this from when you were kids. As soon as someone's feelings gets hurt, it's no longer play, right? It's not play anymore. And then finally, play is expressive. It's not entertainment. It's not just stimulation. It's something from the inside that needs to come out. And so these are the 7 properties of play. Unfortunately, it became an endangered activity, became replaced with instruction, by false play, by screens. And again, cross-disciplinary right now, the cry from the field is we need to return to play. Play is nature's workshop. Play is nature incognito. It works invisibly. And when we lose our play, we lose the opportunity for nature to do its work. And one of the things my colleagues are talking about more and more is just what we call the emotional playgrounds. And these playgrounds are things that you might expect. You know, the playground of music, the playground of stories, of drama, of drawing, of theater, dance. Those are very, very important emotional playgrounds. So, let's just turn this around a little bit and ask this question. How does nature take care of our children? Well, the answers should be really obvious. Nature takes care of our children through relationship with the adults responsible for them. Nature is invested in taking care of our children, but it needs a little help from its friends. Nature historically worked through cultures, but these days it needs our help, our insight to come alongside our kids and to provide for them the context for it. I'm just going to skip ahead here. So, what matters most in raising children? Relationship matters, emotion matters, and play matters. Relationship matters to provide the fundamental context by which our children will develop. Emotion matters to safeguard our children's feelings, to know when they go missing, allows us to come alongside them to help them become expressive. Play matters more than we could have ever possibly imagined. So when considering, this notion of what works, we have to take these preeminent factors into consideration. In the final analysis, the essence of parenting isn't what we do. It's our state of mind. It's the conscious choice we make each and every day to be present in our children's lives, to pay attention to their emotional needs, and to provide them with a caring presence that becomes the soil in which they grow. What children need is for us to resume our rightful role in their lives, to believe that we are their best bet, believing that we are big enough, mom enough, dad enough, grandparent enough, to be our children's answer. This is confidence that comes from within. It's intuition-based, not expert-based, not technique-based, not learning-based, and definitely not media-based. This is the intuitive, wise, capable of preserving connection with our kids type of parenting that will allow us to give them what nature had always intended. Let me just end with a poem here. This was just posted by one of my colleagues a couple of weeks ago, and I just thought, man, what a great What a great set of words to help us really understand what it is that we're looking to do. Oh, the comfort, the inexpressible comfort of feeling safe with a person, having neither to weigh thoughts nor measure words, but pouring them all out just as they are, chaff and grain together, certain that a faithful hand will take and sift them, keep what is worth keeping, and then, with the breath of kindness, blow the rest away. And that's from Dinah Maria Mulak, A Life for a Life. Just a beautiful understanding of what we're trying to create, the culture we're trying to create in our parenting. So, one big proposition, 2 questions that can transform our parenting, and 3 key insights for what matters most in raising our children. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David.
You're
That was
welcome.
awesome. We're going to try and leave some time for questions. I think we didn't. So can we ask you to stay for coffee with us?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we'll ask David to hang out during coffee break and answer some questions with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
I got
Melissa.
a lot out of that. That was great. I always think about one of my best parenting advice I ever got, and I thought about it just when you were closing out, was how much joy can I greet my children with, even when they just come into the room. And I was thinking about that when you said that, because sometimes kids can, it can be tiring, exhausting through the day, but on that first engagement, I always think about how much joy I can greet them with. It's one of my favorite things anyone ever said to me. Okay, we've got some draws.
We have a few draws. So our next prize that we have, so grab your tickets, are the shovels and dartboards. Whoever put their number in there. These are special snow car shovels.
Ooh.
I think my husband put his number in here. Hopefully I don't draw him. Okay, 252-834-46. Not you. Sorry, honey. So 252-834-46. Anybody?
Yay!
Yay! We'll grab it for you from the table. Okay, and then we have one of our 2 fire bowls here. Let's see. This is fire bowl number 2, if you remember what bucket you put yours in. Okay, 252-833-90. 252-833-90. Any takers?
Oh, going.
3390? Woo!
Yay!
Perfect. Well, you can grab it later. You can grab it later if you want, but
Okay.
it's number 2.
We believe you. No liar.
So we're going to break now. How long are we breaking for?
15.
We're going to break for 15 minutes now. At the back, you'll find where Kyle's waving. We have some kombucha options available for you, and we have a little popcorn bar over there where you can make your own delicious snack or treat for the break, and then we'll come back in about 15 minutes. Am I on? Oop. Hi, everybody. I'm sorry to interrupt the fun and food that's happening over there, but can I encourage everyone to come back and take a seat so we can get started with our next presentation? Okay, Gary, you can stand up, or you can sit while I talk about you, whatever way you'd like. So everybody, for our next presenter, we have Gary Brucker. For nearly 30 years, Gary's been involved in providing innovative and life-changing educational programs. Thanks, everybody. Educational programs to children, youth, and adults. As a trained love and logic facilitator, he has a passion for helping people get more tools for their life toolboxes, something that I need, probably all of us need. Gary oversees the implementation of Courage for Youth Association's programs and adult conferences. He's also been on staff at First Lutheran Church for 28 years, where he served in a variety of roles, including the Director of Family Life. More recently, Gary has become an entrepreneur. As an owner of a community-focused coffee shop and brewery, he loves to have opportunities to bring people together. He lives in Kelowna with his wife, one of his 3 daughters, and a dog. So welcome, Gary.
Thank you very much. I am honored to be here this morning. When we got asked at Courage for Youth to come and be a part of this presentation, Parenting in a Digital Age, we have 3 part-time people on our staff at Courage for Youth, and I've known Joel for a long time, and we said we've lost our main presenter for the day. I thought, well, pressure's off. When you're not the number one choice anymore, we'll still do our best, I guarantee you. But when you're not the expert coming in from somewhere else, and you're just the guy that is going to give his best this morning. And here's the thing, parenting in the digital age. How many parents in the room right now? Do you have your cell phones on you? If you're somewhere near, just hold it up for a minute. If you had a device like this 20 years ago, what did it do? If you had a mobile phone 20 years ago, 25 years ago, well, first of all, you were in the minority, and what would it do? You could phone people. And then occasionally you could play a game on your phone. How many devices 20 years ago would you have needed to carry around with you to do what your phone does today? And I actually want to take, whoever you're with right now, or if you're by yourself, actually take a minute and make a little list of how many devices 20 years ago you would have had to carry around with you to do what this one device does today. Take a minute, talk amongst yourselves at your table. There is a prize for the table that gets the most devices you would have to carry. I'm going to give you 2 minutes, go. Table's writing frantically. Did I mention there's prizes? Write it down. Okay, we're at a minute. I'm going to just give you 15 seconds more because time is short this morning. 15 seconds. See how many devices 20 years ago you would have needed to carry with you to do what your one device does today. All right, stop. Right where you are, whatever you got it down. If you wrote it down, even better. How many got over 10 devices you would have had to carry? How many of you got over 20 devices you would have carried? 20? Are we 20 over here? 20? Anyone? 17. So anybody higher than 17? Okay, well, see me afterwards. I got a gift card to my new coffee house for you. There you go. But, so list some of the things. I heard boombox over here. Calculator. Encyclopedia. Whole library, really. Camera. Video camera. You get the point.
Oh, and the phone.
And the phone itself, with a really long line. When we do this in our grade 6 classes that we're working up at CNB right now with our program called SCREAM, last week's class got 47 devices. They took 10 minutes, they got 47 devices they would have had to carry around with them for this one thing. Whoops, this one thing that this does. And unfortunately, most of our kids have them at a very young age, and many of them have no parental involvement. And we'll talk about that. I don't know what I did here, but I'm going to try to fix it. How that hangs on here. As I said, we'll talk specifically about the world in which we're living, because we're all living in it as well as our kids. And younger, we're letting them be connected to it. This is the reason that I consider myself to have any idea of what's going on in the digital age, because I'm a dad of 3 daughters. I'm glad I had them when we had them, because it wasn't a pressure in elementary school already to get them a device. We had to wait till at least middle school when it became an issue. And we held off as long as we could. And I'm glad we did. And we were also, had some people in our lives at the time who were like, remember, with devices, you're the parent. It seems so natural and intuitive, but that's not the world in which we live. I get to speak to a lot of parents during the course of a year in a lot of different areas, and I'll give you a picture in a minute of what I really think this looks like. 26, 24, 21 for the 3 girls, my wife Janet. We've been in Kelowna for 28 years, 29 almost, and this device has been a part, certainly, of our lives in a very big way for the last 10 years. It's the way we stay connected. Already today, I was able to chat with my dad over text in Medicine Hat. I was able to stay connected to 2 of my workplaces. I was able to get some information for this presentation from one of my colleagues. I was able to take pictures. It's the reason that my phone's plugged in now, because it's down to 21% already today. I also run the social media for 2 of my businesses, which means I have a problem with this. And if I have a problem with this, it's hard to talk to others and say, here, do this differently. In this short period of time, I got together with my team, and we've actually enlisted the help of the kids in grade 5, 6, 7, and 8 that we deal with to give us the best tips for you this morning on how to parent in a digital age. And so in a very short period of time, we're going to whip through them. I'll answer some questions again, not being the expert, but being a fellow learner and sojourner with you in this digital parenting age. Number 1, seems so simple. Actually, I'll go back there just for a second. You're the parent. Sometimes we just need to be reminded we've been entrusted with these beautiful gifts of children, and it is our job to get them to adulthood as safely as possible with as many tools in their life toolboxes. We're meant to keep them safe. We're meant to allow them to make mistakes when the price tag's small, because most of us, even as adults, we learn best. And this is my parenting with love and logic background coming, and I'm so glad that I was able to do the course and now become a facilitator. But teaches us this, that we learn best as humans when we're allowed to make mistakes and are loved through them. But how do we do that when the price tag is small? Because a lot of parents, if I just find my keys for a minute. It's like this. I always say to the grade 6s, here's the keys to my Toyota Tacoma. I'm going to give you my credit card too. Could you drive as quick as you can down to Dairy Queen? My friend owns a Dairy Queen. Pick up the box and bring it back to me. And I say, how smart would that be? I'm like, not very smart. Well, why not? Because he doesn't know how to drive. But a lot of times that's what we're doing with devices for kids. Here you go. Learn how to drive it. And so the image really is, how do we train our kids and our grandkids and our loved ones to use the device responsibly? Because it's going to be a part of our lives. It's not don't have one. It's maybe delay having one until it's proper time. But is there a way to do it in a way that equips them to be responsible digital citizens along the way? You're the parent. I'm the parent. It's our job. When kids say to us, it's my device, I was like, really? Who paid for it? Who's paying for the internet in your household? Whose house are you living in? Well, yeah, but it's my device. Oh, it's your device. Yeah, it's my private property. Is it? There is a level already at a very young age of this is mine. And I always say, well, if it's yours, what are you doing on it that you wouldn't want someone else to see it? Well, it's my private thing. Then maybe you shouldn't be doing that. Setting boundaries seems so clear. It's just clear rules and guidelines for your children's online behavior, including how much time they can spend on devices and what they can access and what they can share online. Number one thing. Yesterday, one of the boys in the grade 6 class I'm dealing with said, when I asked him to said, tell parents to be involved. That's simple. Tell parents to be involved. They might not tell their own parents that, but they're going to tell you that. Having a discussion at age-appropriate ages of what's realistic. And we'll talk about that near the end this morning. What's realistic on timing-wise, what they can access, where they can go.
I don't have some magic formula. I don't want to be accused of being a celebrity standing up on a soapbox, but it is possible to just say no. You know, my children don't have social media and haven't had social media. There are many fake accounts out there for myself and also my children, weirdly, so I'm told. But it's possible to just say, no, you can't have it. You can't have it because I want you to enjoy your life. I want you to be a child. I want you to look at the clouds and not photograph them and post them on your Instagram page and then decide whether or not the clouds were worth looking at because someone thought that they were rubbish. It's like it's tampering with sometimes a very basic level of self-esteem, but on a bigger and darker scale, it is tampering with young people's self-esteem to the extent that they are completely losing a sense of who they are, and don't know how to communicate with not just their friends, but their families. And it's making them depressed. It's clearly making them depressed. It's obviously a huge problem. And she's right. Don't let your children have a phone if they are too young to know what to do with it.
Makes sense? Kate Winslet, a parent who's had to struggle in a very big spotlight of how to deal with something that we're all dealing with their kids. So, just a reminder, you're the parent, you can set boundaries. And boundaries actually work best when you're in a discussion with children of what's reasonable. And here's what the consequence will be. And you can take devices away in a way, again, that doesn't shame anybody, but which says, oh, I'm so sorry you chose to do it like that. Empathy mixed with consequence is a way that we learn best. Number 2, monitor their online activity. Again, this is just being involved, especially when they're younger. Where are they going? What are they doing? Who are they connecting with? Our frontal lobes are being, well, they're developing at a far slower pace than they used to. It used to be that 18, 19, 20, they said that the frontal lobe was fully, it's a CEO part of the brain. It allows us to think through consequences. And by the time we were 20, most of us had a fully developed frontal lobe. Because of brain research and what we're seeing because of less face-to-face interaction and more face-to-screen interaction, 27 to 29 years old. So I always tell kids, if you know that thing where when your parents say, why'd you do that? And you go, I don't know. Like, it wasn't smart. I don't know. I said, just tell them your frontal lobe isn't fully developed. And it's true. But it's also true for adults. We're going to make some mistakes along the way. Being involved again is the key to this. Monitor their online activity. There will be, the older you get with the older your kids get with this, they'll say, well, that's my private device. But if you've started at a very early age with them, that you're going to be involved in their technology, it's a lot easier. For some of you your kids are now teens, this is going to be hard to back up a little bit. But you can still say, I'm the parent, I love you, and I want the best for you, and I've learned a few things, and here's what I think. Am I going to talk a lot about what apps to have and what? No, you can find a plethora of apps to monitor your kids' stuff. I can point you in the right direction. And what we believe is this, that trust really is earned. It can be shattered very quickly, but it's much easier to set the boundaries on the front end and to set some expectations and then to let them build that trust and give them a little more and a little more as the time goes on. Unfortunately, most of us would rather do this. If I don't see it, it's not a problem. Just keep my head down. As a dad, I went through that whole phase with 3 teenage girls. I'd rather not know. That's not the answer. It might feel right and a lot less stress, but it's not the answer. 3, we really believe that education for our kids, if they understand why we're concerned, and if they understand how the devices work and where they can get to within a short period of time. I mean, I like asking this question of grade 5 and 6s. Have you ever looked at something online and all of a sudden you were seeing something you didn't need to see or hear? Well, everybody. How many of you in this room have accidentally, not even on purpose, got to a place where like, I wish I could unsee that? And yet, we're allowing our kids and grandkids to have devices where they can do that within a click of a button. See things, experience things, be tempted to go to places that are not healthy. And so education is a part of that. Because we can't be with them 24/7, even though we'd like to sometimes. Teachers can't be with them 24/7. So we really believe that in helping them identify what's important to them, their values early on, will help them because that's going to be their compass. Maybe I shouldn't click on that. That's wisdom. I know what could happen if I go there. We want our kids to never be able to say, nobody told me that could happen. And that's by giving them information along the way. So, emphasizing the importance of digital citizenship and good online behavior starts with us sitting with them and educating. Watch this scary little piece.
Watch the Patriots game this weekend.
Dude, you can't miss it.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I feel like Tom Brady and the Patriots really have a good chance against the Chiefs.
Yeah, not as many people are injured. Everything's going well. We've been the Chiefs last couple times. It's gonna go great.
Yo, check this out.
Yo, you gotta send that to me.
All right. All right, there you go. Got it. You gotta send that to me too.
Is she serious?
So this is an education piece we use with grade 5, 6, and 7s to just let them know, hey, when you think you're talking to somebody you don't know who you're actually talking to, and to send some picture or some information can get you in trouble very quickly. Again, just education, awareness for kids, not to scare them, but to make them real. That's a reality. By the way, this is in school District 23, number one issue the police are dealing with in schools is images on people's phones being shared around. And they're not other people's images, they're images of students in the school district. And online bullying. But there you go. That's in our very own school district. We give them some very key guidelines at the end of their little session on media and social media. This seems so simple, and it really is, but difficult to put in practice. To have the kids, if they're going to be on social media, at what age is appropriate, then they would set their privacy settings to the most private so they can control who sees their stuff, who they're interacting with. It's not for emotional content. We say if you're going to have a serious conversation, have it face-to-face. Some of us adults need to learn that as well. Balanced screen time versus non-screen time, really encouraging them to develop those non-dopamine aggressive brain activities that really help us to be more balanced. Not sharing personal information, which seems obvious, and then when in doubt, always, we have them list trusted adults. We are so excited when kids can list 10, 20 trusted adults in their lives that if there was a problem they could go to, because every kid is going to need a trusted adult. And so if you're helping establish your little village and your family with your kids of their trusted adults, because maybe it's not going to be you they're going to come to, but hopefully there's somebody in there that they trust enough, teacher, a coach, youth leader, aunt or uncle, that can help them along the way. Number 4, lead by example. This is really hard, and that comes from a guy that spends a lot of time on his phone. We had to set some boundaries in our own family. Mealtime, no devices. Bedtime, hour before on a charging station. Just something we had to do to set some realistic boundaries for how we were going to model behavior. Because what they see their parents, they were teaching me, Dad, I'm talking to you. They've been very helpful as they've gotten older, and I think also because they were more delayed than some of their friends in getting devices, they've been very aware of how it's affected their relationships. We, Courage for Youth that I work for, we got to go, we were going to Mexico as a family to do a mission project, one summer, half vacation, half mission project, and they said, would you do us a favor? Would your family all sign on and do this little experiment? And so we all took our devices, but for the first week we couldn't use them. 0. 3 teenage girls in Mexico, no devices. We also realized how hard it was because we used it for maps, we used it for figuring out information, how to get places. We didn't realize how much we used our devices. Second week, you were allowed 1 hour. 1 hour, you could do whatever you wanted. You could play a game, you could connect with your friends, you could watch a video. They had to journal. We all had to journal every week, and how it had changed. By the end of the 4 weeks, what they said was, we felt our relationships got better. I needed to be the leader. But they taught me, be mindful. Because that's too often the picture we get, and they're not playing a game together. Number 5, encourage real life interactions. We know that what happens in the brain when you're on your screen is different than what happens when you are connecting with my voice and seeing my facial expressions and my body language right now. So having them do face-to-face interactions is really important. Teaching them how to respond and interact with adults and kids, not just on their devices, but face-to-face, really important. And we can model that for them as well. If you're going to have a serious conversation as an adult, it would be best to, if you can't be in the same place, to say, I'm going to FaceTime or at least get on the phone. And they can hear that, they can see that, because they can see facial expressions, they can hear the tone of your voice, they can feel the body language along the way. And really encouraging activities that don't involve screens. That's sometimes as a family or with their friends, get them outside and playing. In Canada, these are Canada numbers from 2021, the average person spent 5.1 hour on their screens a day. And the recommended for kids under the age of 12, how many hours? 1 to 2 max. That's including their school time and their gaming and their texting, or else we're starting to make rewiring things in our brains. Again, this isn't to scare anything, anybody, just to give you enough information to help make good choices. We make this little list because of the dopamine factors in the brain, what's going on in the brain. The chemical that gets released on that high when you're gaming or when you're texting or when you're getting likes online is the same chemical getting released when you're drinking alcohol, taking cocaine, same thing, that energy boost of dopamine into the brain. So you can be as addicted to screen as you can to any substance. And I actually believe in the next 20 years, we're going to have dry out centers. There's already dry out centers for people who are addicted to technology. There's a girl, very wise girl in grade 6 this week that said she started bragging about how many vegetables she was eating when we put this slide up. I said, how come that is? She said, because my parents limit my screen time. And the rest of the class was like, what? Most kids desire to have more vegetables, but they live in a world that is really pushing candy. We can encourage that. Number 6, keep devices out of the bedroom. I can't say this enough. The number of times that we see people get into trouble because their devices are in their bedroom outweighs the number of anywhere else. If their devices are in public places where they have to chat and talk, but we get kids that are sleep deprived, that are having middle of the night conversations, that are checking for alerts and notification, and it's my alarm clock. I said to my girls, I'll buy you an alarm clock. A separate one. You don't need it to be an alarm. It's my music. I'll buy you a stereo. I'll put it in your room. It's how I relax and watch Netflix. You can watch it downstairs on the TV, and then you can put your device away and go to bed. Oh, Dad, everybody. I don't care. I'm not everybody else's dad. I love you, and I desire you to get home safely. And so I'm going to do the best I can. Well, Dad, okay, I'll put mine away too. So this week and last week, we're going through 320 students at CNB. We're halfway through now up at Neil Bruce with grade 6 students in our social emotional learning program. We spend a week of mornings with these kids, and well over half have devices in the room overnight unsupervised. That's at 11 years old. That's a heavy burden. But again, not unfixable, just a conversation and some boundary setting and some reasons why. 7, just stay informed. This one's really hard because it's changing. I mean, I could give you 3 really great apps today that wouldn't even matter tomorrow. This week I told kids they were talking about TikTok and some of the things that they're doing online. I said, yeah, but are you on Be Real? And they're like, what? Oh, you're not on Be Real. You're not hip. And they knew that because my kids told me I need to be on Be Real. But Be Real is an app right now that you can take, it just sends you a notification, and whoever you're in your group with, you send a picture of what you're doing right now. I could get a Be Real notification right now. That'd be really rude. And I would take a picture of you and me because that's where I am. No filters, no anything. It's just being real. I actually kind of like it because it takes the filter game out of it and just allows people to be where they're at. But the point is here, you cannot keep up fast enough. So, staying informed, having some trusted websites. They're going to send you a couple of resources or give you a couple of resources in a minute of how you can best stay up to date on all things technology. Because staying informed is power, is knowledge. Here's some of them. You can take a picture of that. They're just zoned websites that will connect you to other resources, the best in the field. Try to stay on. You can even check apps out. You can check different movies out. You can check different content out because staying involved means it's a little bit of work. Courage for Youth is the organization I work for and represent in terms of our work in the school districts all over Alberta and British Columbia, our social emotional learning. And if you would like us to come to your kid's school, get involved with a PAC and talk to the principal. Once that happens, we have a deep scholarship fund that can help us get to your school and help train kids in this very thing. The more voices that are saying the same thing, better chance it's going to work. I know some of you probably have some as well. I'm going to open it up for questions. Again, this is rapid fire. Here's sort of, if you want to take a one shot, there's the 7 things that we have compiled with our upper elementary and middle school kids along with our team that works in the school and trusted parents in our group that say, if these things are in place, there's a good chance we can get them there safely. There's a good chance that relationships are going to be healthier. And there's a really good chance that we can keep them safe in a very difficult digital age. I'll open up to questions if anybody has them. Do we take the microphone? Is that how we're doing that? Or comments or other resources?
1 or 2 questions, and then Gary can maybe hang out a bit in the back
for
during
sure.
Anita's talk. Okay, any quick questions? I just want to say thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. I have a really great team. Honestly, the facilitators we have in our classes are just top notch.
Just curious, what age do you think is appropriate for? Well, we don't have any kids with cell phones yet, but I'm wondering what you think.
And even iPads. It's 46. I didn't say that, but he did. Get asked this all the time. So I think there's a a question of reasonableness here. So the question when my daughters were in middle school was always like, well, what age? Well, if your kids have to walk to and from places a long distance alone in the world that we're in, it's nice to have them be able to be connected. Okay? So if they're spending, that's one of the questions about the cell phone. When do I need to communicate with them? So when I get to an age where I kind of need to have a connectivity, then they're not just with a friend, they're not with a friend's parents. I think that's a reasonable question. If it's just for them to be able to text their friends, I'd start to say, I think we can hold off on that. In terms of games, I mean, gaming has changed. Remember when you used to have to sit in the same room with somebody and sit on the same couch and share the same controller to play a video game? Or to play a board game, you knew who you were playing with. Unfortunately, this has been a really easy device. This has been a really easy device for us to hand off and say, here, I'm busy for a few minutes, can you just play a game? Again, I don't think that that's necessarily wrong, but it has to be in small bites along the way and know exactly where they're going and what game they're playing. I've seen parents that just hand it off and they can do anything. They can go wherever they want. We know that's not healthy. So I think, again, I do like to follow those that are in the field of brain development that say the less amount of time early on in life that we're on our screens, the healthier it is. The more we can delay, just like we know. If we used to think that if you can just introduce alcohol to a child at an age like 14, 15 to teach them how to do it responsibly, we know that's false. We've now proven that to be false. That the countries that have taken that approach, they actually have a higher incidence of alcoholism and drug abuse than those that held off as long as possible. And I own a brewery, so it's my business. But I don't want alcoholics. I want people to come together in community and use it wisely. Okay, so the same thing is, how do we delay and little bites along the way that make sense? They're going to game. They're going to have social media at some point, but what's age appropriate? I would say, for me personally, in dealing with teens, middle school would be the absolute earliest. Upper middle school, till we're on social media, because there's a lot of things that happen on social media. We discovered this week that there's a whole grade 6 chat group that nobody knew was happening at the school, and it wasn't healthy. Sorry, over here. I hope that, what I want to say is, I think thoughtful in your family process of let's do it intentionally.
Okay, this is going to be our very last question. Nope, that's okay. I can run. Yeah, she says.
I was wondering if you think your child might have an addiction to screens and video. How do you deal with that? Because just taking it away and ripping off the Band-Aid is not going to do it. So how do we deal with that?
It was very good discussion, because we were having this the other day. If they're already at that level, because we had someone in the class this week that says, I think I'm addicted. Okay, so first thing we say is, how do we figure that out? One is take it away. Because if you take it away and they lose in their mind, you're probably starting to have a little bit of a problem. Second of all, we have a whole area that is undiscovered in terms of how we're going to have to dry people out. So I think, again, if you have had no boundaries and they're on it 5-6 hours a day, it's going to have to be a weaning. It's going to have to be, how do we back this off? But one of the problems is helping them see that it's a problem. Because even kids, one class in Alberta we did their program with last month, they actually determined as a class, we've got a problem. Every lunch hour, every break, they were all on their devices. So one of the things we have them do at the end of the week is create our agreement to this community, our commitment to this community. And they realized that it was a problem, so they made the commitment that they were going to only do 2 lunch hours a week where they could be there on their devices. And the teacher said it has changed their classroom. So they didn't just say no more devices. They said, what's reasonable? How could we back this off and make it manageable? And I think once they experience what that looks like and what it feels like to not be like that, even for us, when I can put that down and not feel like I have to, it's relieving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you so much, Gary.
You're welcome. I'll be
was
around.
Awesome.
So.
Yeah, all of these topics we know we could do full days on. So stay tuned. Future conferences for sure. Follow Courage for Youth and their excellent work in our community, and keep learning. It's one of those things, we've got lots to learn. I was just laughing this week. My 16-year-old son has started having a contest with me as soon as the weekly screen time drops on his iPhone, he comes to see if he's done less than me, which is, I'll talk about accountability, hey? But he's always trying to get his numbers down. And so, would certainly echo that piece around delaying as long as we can so it becomes less central to themselves. Anita, do you want to use the handheld or do you want to use a lapel mic?
I've never used a lapel.
Okay, so you're okay with this? Okay, so we're so happy to have Anita with us today. She's a community member with us in Metro, and when we talked about having her today, or when I mentioned her name around town, gosh, just so much respect and honor I heard about Anita as a clinician and as a professional in town, so we're so privileged and lucky to have her with us today. Anita is a mother of 3 and a soon-to-be grandmother. She's also been an English teacher, a school counselor, and has been part of this behavior support team for SD23, as well as part of the critical incident team. She's passionate about the power of family and is a registered clinical counselor. And she's going to talk to us a little bit about conflict and what else did you call it? I forgot. Sorry, you'll introduce it. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for letting me come here, and thanks for being here. That was really interesting at the end, Gary, just segue between conflict resolution and the digital thing. I was in an airport not long ago, and I literally felt like I was a bit of a weirdo because I had stuck my phone away intentionally. And it's in this world, when you're sitting and just looking at people, you feel like you're kind of creepy or something when you're not with your head down on your screen. So yeah, so prevalent, and big issue. But so I did a little research on what percentages of families fight, and the Google told me 100%. 100% of us fight. And when I was looking at that, I found this, it was a survey that was published in the New York Post, and it said on average families have 5.06 battles a week, and so between the ages of 2 and 18 for a child over those 16 years, that's 4,209 battles, which is massive. So I'm just hoping that what we talk about today on collaborative problem solving, which is now known as, it's called collaborative and proactive solutions. I'm just going to call it CPS for short. I'm just hoping that it helps us to cut some of those conflicts down. So again, I'm Anita, and I have a 25, 26, and 28-year-old, and our daughter's here today, and she's the one who's about to give birth in 5 weeks, so that's super exciting. And somebody told me last year that Albert Baldeo used to say that grandchildren are a parent's gifts for not killing their kids. Parenting is not for the faint of heart, but there's nothing in the world like the love I don't literally think there's anything in the world like the love a parent has for a child. So I'll just jump in. Like when I worked for the school district, and I'm only sort of talking about this because when I worked on it's now called the social emotional learning team, but it was called the behavior support team back then. Our job was to work with kids with challenging behavior. And the only reason I'm saying that is because we really shifted in what we believed about behavior. And David touched on that earlier. I think historically, and it's kind of still prevalent now, people believe that when kids are acting out, when they're being defiant or aggressive, or they're doing it for a choice. They're choosing to do that to either get or avoid something. They are trying to avoid turning the computer off, or they're trying to, classic was always, they're just trying to get attention. So the assumption was it was very much a choice, and we would try to modify that behavior with consequences or rewards. So collaborative problem solving is the antithesis of that. It's the polar opposite. It is not. It is based on a very different understanding. So when we shifted away from that kind of belief system that kids were doing that kind of behavior intentionally. It goes in, we started teaching Dr. Ross Green. He taught at Harvard for about 20 years. He now, at Harvard Medical School, he teaches at Virginia Tech. He's also the director of a nonprofit organization called Lives in the Balance. And we are just going to totally just scratch the surface. And I'm going to go at kind of Mach speed going through this. But if there's anything you take away, go to Lives in the Balance. Super helpful resources. They're all free. It's really informative. And Dr. Green's and his partners at the time and now, their entire belief about challenging behavior in kids is kids do well if they can. And again, that is the opposite of kids do well if they want to. It's a completely different mindset and belief. So I think one of the things that Dr. Green has said that really stuck with me is kids, nobody wakes up in the morning and wants to do badly. Like, nobody wants that. Everybody wants to wake up and have positive coming to them and feel good about themselves. So if they're not doing well, there's a reason for it. And this is sort of the philosophy of collaborative problem solving here. So that is essentially the framework for CPS. And we're just going to go a little bit into what the steps are. So essentially what CPS teaches us is that if our kids are struggling to meet our expectations, if we're saying you need to come to the table at this time, you need to shut the computer off, you need to get your homework done, you need to unload the dishwasher, whatever it is, and our kids are struggling to meet our expectations, that's where conflict starts. All conflict kind of is grounded in somebody not meeting our expectations. And this goes across the board, at work, anywhere conflict arises. But so with respect just to our kids, it's looking at assessing what skills they might be struggling with in order to meet our expectations, kind of deciding which skill we want to focus on working on with our kids, and then looking at our own expectations, like are our expectations actually reasonable? And sometimes they're not. Like, sometimes our expectations are a little maybe too hard. When we actually step away from our kids are choosing to do that and move toward, I think there might be something in the way of our kids doing better. So looking at how do we assess what skills might be lagging. This is on the Lives in the Balance website, and it's free, and I would really encourage you to go on and print it out, because there's really interesting skills in there. And I think when we take some time to sit down and really look at lagging skills and what they might be, we all have them. Like, we're looking at this through the lens of what might be going on for our kids, and are our expectations reasonable in context of what's going on for our kids? But there's also, we all have this. And this is one of the beautiful things about this collaborative problem-solving model, is it teaches these skills, and the skills that we're looking at in this are the skills that we use to resolve conflict for the rest of our life. So we're really, it's helpful. But we don't really have time to go into that today. I'm sorry, I just wanted to draw your attention to it and kind of take a look at it. A lot of the research, David was touching on that this morning too, that's coming out, is super, super clear that punishments and rewards just they're very ineffective. Like, they will alter behavior short term, and you can get a kid to behave differently for a bit, but the vast majority of behavior returns to baseline and keeps going with punishment and reward. And I think what happens with that is we're really missing what's going on, like the bigger thing with our kids. We're totally missing what's happening. What are they either not capable of, or what's a bigger problem that's going on. And I know, like, honestly, when we started using this approach in the school district, it sounds a little bit soft, because I was sometimes looking at, you know, a kid and my own kids and going, yeah, right, they're not choosing to do that. Like, it can be a little bit of it is a bit of a leap. It's quite a quantum shift in philosophical belief that if they could do better, they would do better. But I really believe it, and I've seen this approach work over and over and over again. Again, looking at what skills might be lagging and what skills we need to work on in our own selves when it comes to conflict resolution. All of these: emotional self-regulation, language, communication, attention, working memory, social thinking, cognitive ability. Like, in the cognitive ability, there's whole sections of our brain that some of us don't transition that quickly. Like, if we are in a game or on the computer, some of us don't just snap, and other of us, they can, right? So, yeah, just looking at different types of skills that we could maybe be teaching our kids. So I think once we've kind of identified, is there a lagging skill? Is there an unsolved problem that's happening that is causing this conflict to keep popping up over and over and over? Then we move into problem solving. And this is where I just kind of want to spend some time in Plan B. So in problem solving, it is you have a conflict with your kid. Plan A is totally parent just says, you know, my house, my rules. Adult just imposes the will, and that's it. And so CPS is really, it moves very much away from that as much as we can. And sometimes we have to plan A. Like, if it's a safety issue or something's going on, sometimes we have to do that. That's just the way it is. Plan C is shelve it for now. And I think there's real wisdom in that sometimes as well, because it's not always, we have to choose our battles, right? We can't take everything on, and there's certain times when we're not going to engage in the heat of the moment, because that's just not the time to engage in conflict. We're not going to get anywhere. But Plan B, what Plan B is, we're going to just look at the steps of Plan B. The goal of Plan B really is to involve our kids in solving the problem. So Plan B is really where that's where the real value, I think, is, and that's where the gold is in the collaborative piece. So, yeah, we'll just take a look at this. This is, of the steps of Plan B, number one is empathy. And this is where we really, really dig, and we really listen, we really ask, we really, really strive to seek an understanding of what our kids' perspective is. And I think if anything we could ever know about conflict resolution, I think this is the number one thing, is to really ask. Because Dr. Green, when he talks about this, he says this is where the jaw-dropping moments come. And I have seen it in my own kids over and over and over again. Talked with parents who are like, I had no idea this is what was going on for my kid. So empathy is in coming to your kid at the right time, not in the heat of the moment, and saying, like, help me understand what's going on, because we keep fighting about this, and I want to understand from your perspective what's happening here. I think when Dr. Green says, if a kid knows you see them, hear them, are interested in their perspective, it will go a very long way. Because I think in our humanness, that's all we really want often, is to be seen and be heard and be understood. And I think when you send that message to your kid that I want to work with you on this, and try to get them to, they're also trying to understand your perspective, so you're teaching that skill, which is a lifelong skill, the perspective understanding of other people. And then after you kind of had a chance to get it from their perspective and hear what's going on, then you define the concern. You kind of fact check with them, and is this your concern? And then define your concern as a parent. And I think in this, it's actually a little bit harder to define your own concern than you would think. Sometimes it comes down to, and David touched on this morning too, the whole issue around control. Like, I think sometimes as parents, we think we have to be in control. And that's our trigger. If you're not listening to me, it's because, like, I need to be in control. I am big dog, you are small dog, right? Like, there's that whole concept that comes with it, which I think one of the most important things that I think we can take away from this whole model is it's not about control, it's about influence. So our desire should not be, or our thinking should not be, I need to be in control of you. Our whole goal should be influence, because control can get really ugly, right? Like, there's not a healthy thing. But influence, that's where we build relationship with our kids. And that's what it's all about, is the relationship. And I think because conflict comes up so often, conflict can really damage relationship, or conflict can really enrich relationship. And I think when we approach conflict in a way like this, I think it helps to really enrich a relationship. And you learn about your kids so much when you come at it from this way, and you empower them to know you're part of this, and you invite them in. So then there's the invitation. Okay, let's work through this together. How are we going to do this? Help me problem solve. Help me. I need your help in this. And it just helps across. It helps so much when we kind of approach conflict from this perspective. So I'll just give you an example. And I've seen this is just the first time it really hit me, was when one of my kids was in grade 1. And he used to, like, the classroom door was here, and it came out sort of onto a grassy area, and then there was a parking lot over here. And they'd come out the door, and parents would stand here, and I would either stand here in the grassy area, or I'd stand in the parking lot with a friend of mine who would bring her dog, and she couldn't take her dog over there. So anyways, one of my kids would come out, and it seemed very random to me, but sometimes he would whip his backpack at me and stomp off to the vehicle, sit in the vehicle, and not talk to me. And I was like the first time it happened, I just went, oh, you had a really bad day. Like, something really bad happened. And then it happened again, and I was like, okay, I'm not sure what that's about. And I think it was around the third time it happened. Then I got mad, and I was like, okay, that is rude. Like, you don't need to do that, and did that whole thing. And I went away, and I thought about it, and I thought, okay, let's try this thing. And I started with the empathy thing, chose my timing, sat down with him, said, we seem to be having a problem here with this. And it took a little bit of time, and he looked at me right in the eye and said, if you would stand where I can see you when I walk out the door, I would know that you didn't forget to pick me up. Because he couldn't see me in the parking lot, he could see me on the grass. So if I would have just gone, oh, you get a treat on the seat in the van if you don't whip your backpack at my head, right? Like, if I would have just rewarded good behavior, I would never have known what was going on. And sure, I could have maybe adapted the behavior for a little while, but you're missing the entire unsolved problem underneath of what that conflict's about, right? Same as consequence. I could have consequenced him and said, you're being rude to me, you're not, I'm taking whatever away from you, or you miss it. We miss it with punishment and reward. So that's kind of collaborative problem solving. And again, do you know what? I'm rushing because I know we're short on time. So I apologize for speaking at mock speed here, but I would really encourage you to go to Lives in the Balance and kind of look into this and kind of go over it again. So summary, we're really looking at kids do well if they can, not kids do well if they want to. Punishments and rewards, pretty ineffective. I think we need to really remember that when people are at their worst, they're always in pain. Like, that's a given. There's no question. When people are really acting out and not doing well, there's something else going on. And that's our job as parents to find out what's going on. And it's a different belief system to operate from, but it is kind of where compassion and curiosity comes into conflict. And this is where I think we can really enrich the relationship with our kid. Conflict doesn't have to be a relationship, damaging to relationship. Conflict can be a really good ground, because we're going to have it. It's part of life. It's how it is. So, and again, take a look at the LSAT, print that off, and have a look at it. It's interesting when we look at it with respect to our kids as well as for our own selves. What areas do we need to grow in? Adjust expectations. Are we being realistic? Because, again, the actual behavior is the least important part of solving a conflict. The expectation is really the most important part, because that's what conflict is. It's just when expectations aren't being met. So, yeah, prioritize, choose our battles. We can't do it all. So choose which ones are the most important and kind of decide why. Consider our timing, and then collaborate. And truly, this is where the golden stuff comes in. It is, and again, the steps of Plan B, what it's called in CPS, is empathy. Find out what's going on for your kid. Define your concern, define their concern, and then invite them into working together on it. So it's it seems a little bit strange at the start when you first start doing it, and sometimes your kids go, when you say, "What's the matter?" they go, "Nothing." So you got to kind of persevere and keep digging and keep asking and keep sending them the message that you're worth it, and I want to sit here and work through this with you until we find out what's happening and what's going on. Again, it's not about control, it's about influence as parents, and all of conflict resolution is solved through communication. So that's kind of it, period, bar none. Communication is the number one thing. And I remember, actually, Kimberly was the one who said this to me a long time ago. She said, when your kid is telling you something that is making your stomach do jumping jacks, just keep letting them talk. Especially the middle school ages, right? The middle school, adolescent ages. It's like, but just keep the conversation going and keep the communication going, because that is our way to solve conflict, is through that. So, yeah, I hope this is okay, and I hope you find something in here that might be helpful. But I'd really encourage you to just maybe challenge some of our belief systems about behavior being a choice, and switch to, that kids do well if they can. So yeah, that's it. So I'm wrapping up. Thanks. Oh, sorry. I wanted to say one last thing. As far as resources go, the other thing we have in Kelowna, which is amazing, is Building Healthy Families, and they are they're a nonprofit agency in town, and they run two groups. They run one on anger management, and they really spend like weeks going through conflict resolution. They do different types of conflict. They do different styles of how we handle conflict. A lot of stuff that we just don't have time to delve into today. If you want to kind of slow it down and delve a little deeper into it, programs are free. They are beautiful, helpful, kind, awesome people that work down there. I would suggest Building Healthy Families for groups, and they also run a program called The Zone, and that is for, you take your kid ages 10 to 16, and that's helpful as well. That's their website, Lives in the Balance again, and yeah, thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you, Anita. That was awesome. So good. So complicated to do in a half hour, but I took away some really important points. I think a cool thread that sort of wove through was that if kids could do better, they would, just like I would do better if I could. So what do I need around me to elicit my best? I thought that was a cool thread. What was did you have a takeaway today?
I had a lot of takeaways, and I couldn't put them down to one probably. Yeah. But I think just the emphasis on relationship again, taking the time to get down to a child's level, to ask them what's going on, and to really ask what do they need in this situation, I think was common in all the talks as well. And it's a good reminder for me personally with my kids.
And I thought about our highest hopes that we articulated at the beginning of the day are really different than just control and thoughtless obedience. We want bigger things for our kids, and I thought that was a cool thing too, to sort of draw us back to. We'd like to invite you to take 2 minutes, 30 seconds, to think about what your takeaway might be for today. What's one thing you've said that you'd like to say to your spouse if they're here, to a friend if they're here, to your neighbor if they're just somebody sitting beside you? What's one thing that you might want to dig into, learn a little bit more about, one thing that you might be able to take with you? Just marking it as a point in time of something that you can take with us helps it to go into our longer term memory. So if you want to just take 30 seconds, 1 minute, and just sort of talk for a minute about one thing you heard today. Oh, yeah. Let's go to 12:25 and then we have 5 minutes for the presents and then go get your kids. Yeah. Just a gift. Screen thing. Yeah, it's tough. It's really hard. Yeah. We were just joking because we feel like we've done a really good job, and now it just feels different again. We're struggling a bit more because it's also Owen being 16, we really are trying to take the hands off the reins a little bit, right? He's got to own that, and so change that. Exactly. Be able to do this stuff. Yeah. So, but it's tricky. But he was never a super gamer. Well, Joel didn't have he wouldn't have any games for a long time, so that made it a little easier. But. Yeah. I had to laugh at Owen was because I'm way better at Super Mario Brothers than he is. He's like, you played more than I do. Okay. Anybody want to share something?
Anyone feeling brave?
One thing that just stuck with me is I have 3 kids. I'm a single mom, but I believe it was the first one that spoke about it, but just the way when the kids are misbehaving, and instead of meeting kind of your expectations, why are you doing this? Why did you hit your sister? Why aren't you listening? Trying to find out and understand the behaviors instead of why are you not meeting my expectations, and more being that influence instead of looking at the behavior.
Yeah, being curious about the behavior instead. That's wonderful. Anyone else have another takeaway? Oh, you're going to run?
I'm going.
Melissa's getting your steps in.
Mine's a bit more generalized, but just creating more structure in my own day-to-day life with what I just like, it seems like you just go day to day and there's just motions that you just do unconsciously. So just creating more structure in my brain, or like even writing it down as to like steps I can be taking to help get to those like milestones, and like creating less screen time, or making sure that I'm like thinking, oh, I need to be more empathetic right now and not just have those reaction moments. So just being a little bit more mindful with how I participate in the day with them.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I think all of these things start with how we can apply them to ourselves, right? We have to learn some of these skills before we can attempt to use them with our children.
We were just talking about how in a perfect world, all these things are so beautiful, how we would, of course, exercise the ability to employ all of these strategies and tips and tools. So then we started thinking about what are the things in our lives that prevent us from doing that. And a big one in our life, and probably most of our lives, is hurry. And so how do we eliminate the need to hurry through life, and then in turn rush our kids or say, we got to get out the door, whatever. And so that's been a theme in my life as an adult. How do I slow down and be more present? And I think it affects our kids. So
yeah, thanks, Ryan. Anyone else have something they'd love to share? Oh, yeah.
I think it was the importance of play that was very paramount for me, because I don't know, as an adult, I've kind of lost the ability to want to get down and play Barbies, and it's kind of like, okay, well, mom can only do this for so long, but if we can get involved in just art and crafts and dance and just having that play, I think it'll be, it helps come back to that being present as well, right, for the whole family. So that was important for me. Thank you.
Oh yeah, that was a challenge for me as well, or something to be mindful of, learning how to play again and being present to play.
Yeah, but so critical. And I think even dealing with the digital stuff we focused on there, that's a big deal. If we're able to play and engage with our kids. And I hate playing with toys too, but what can that look like that I do love? Like going for walks and noticing cool stuff and throwing things in the water. What else? Sitting for meals. Some of these sort of simpler things that, yeah, shut the TV and the screen off. Oh.
We'll come back.
My takeaway, my first thing that I thought of was just about how, from connection, you can start to, have that relationship where you can actually do stuff with your kid, talk about things or do anything. Mm-hmm. So I just thought, creating a good relationship or keeping that going is important, I guess, for me.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, we've got one last one, and then I think we have to go pick up our kids. So here you go.
I was just going to say something that has been lost, I think, in today's society is eye contact. And I noticed that was a huge deal with my son and I. We were really connected, and we had some things that happened in our lives. And so it was always talking while you're on the run, and communicating that way. And then, I realized that we were being pulled apart and we weren't connecting as well as we were. So we sit down now and it's like, hey, if you're not looking at me, we need to look at each other. And that's made a huge difference. But I think we're always in a rush and we're not paying attention to it, that you're on the fly talking. And that's a huge thing. We've lost a lot of that, so.
Man, we got some blessed kids in this room. We're so thankful for all you're doing to take care and raise awesome kids. So thanks for letting us be a part of it today. Give some prizes?
Yes. Before the kids start busting out of those doors. Yeah. Okay, so the first one we're going to draw is someone who's getting a kitchen makeover with new skillets and new Dutch ovens to make culinary wonders for their family meal times.
I'll do this one. 2, 5, 2, 8, 3, 4, 3, 4. This had the most tickets in it. I was surprised. People are keen on the skillets. 3, 4, 3, 4. Woo! Good. So they're by the door there. And you can get, thank you. When you
Take that winner's walk. Okay, next we have our second fire bowl. So that's 252-83413.
Hey!
Grab it on your way out. You got the last one.
All right. And special thanks to our donors for 2 nights at Crazy Creek. Appreciated. 25283451. 2 nights at Crazy Creek.
Who gets
Who's
to
going
enjoy
to the pools?
April holiday?
Oh, we don't know yet.
One more time.
25283451. Uh-oh, did they leave early? Hey!
Yay! Is that over there?
That's it. 3451. Yep. Yay!
So thank you everyone so much for joining us this morning. I hope you got something small to take away with you. Please don't forget to just grab your children, but then also we'd love to invite you and your kids. You and your kids to Safer Soup. It'll be available at the door and you're welcome to stay here, connect with another family, and enjoy a meal with your kids if you have the time. So thank you so much for joining us.